Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today we are reviewing, I guess, some shots that Barack Obama took at Donald Trump when he opened the presidential center in Chicago. I want to go ahead and share this clip as it seems to be trending. Let's go ahead and play it, and then we'll talk about it.
A belief in the intrinsic dignity and worth of all people, and that no one is above the law or beneath its protection. A belief in checks and balances in our government and an accountability that comes with it, an independent judiciary and a robust free press. A belief that our military and law enforcement owe allegiance not to any president or political party, but to the people and our Constitution. A belief in the peaceful transfer of power after the people have spoken in fair and free elections, recognizing that in a large, complicated society like ours, no group or faction gets its way 100% of the time. And a belief that qualities of character, honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion, a sense of duty and honor, those things matter in our public dealings, just as they do in our private lives. These are not these are the values and traditions I believe in. And they are not Republican or Democratic values. They're American values we can all share, regardless of party. Values every president here today, as different as we are, has tried our best to uphold. Values that John McCain and Mitt Romney believed in, no less than I did. It is our greatest inheritance, the story of America at its best, because it reflects a basic faith in the decency of our fellow citizens and the possibility that despite all of our differences, we can see each other and understand one another and make common cause together. That's what I hope every visitor to this center takes away from their experience. And that's why if you come for a day and you don't have time to see everything, I would urge you to skip the clips of my speeches. You have heard them all before. In favor of the stories of those ordinary citizens who helped make that change happen. The cancer survivor who feared rising premiums would force her out of her home and was brave enough to speak out about it. She's why we pushed so hard for healthcare reform. The small business owner trying to keep the lights on. The teenage girl who told me she was worried her dad might lose his job in the auto crisis. They're why we focus so relentlessly on pulling our economy back from the Great Recession. The wounded warrior overcoming debilitating injuries. The gay Air Force major serving her country even when forced to hide who she was. They're why we worked to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell and care for those who've worn our country's uniform.
There we go again. Obama is talking about the points that really matters to him. LGBTQ points, the gay Air Force people. For those who are not following along, Trump has banned a lot of LGBTQ from certain roles within the Air Force and the military. And again, true to form, Obama feels like this is his calling issue, and he speaks to it all the time. I don't know why. I don't know why this issue is so important to him. A lot of people allege that he could be kind of in a closet, haven't really came out like that yet. I don't know. I'm not here to speculate on his sexuality or what's going on. He seems to be in a happy marriage. So I'm not sort of in the gossip business. That's not what I'm for. But I always took issue with the fact that Obama seems to always hark on this particular issue, like he's the champion for gay rights movements. I don't get it.
And do right by our military families. It's their voices that led to our successes. And while going through the exhibits, I'd also ask you listen to the voices of people around the world who've been inspired by American ideas. Yes, America has made its share of foreign policy mistakes. Our actions have not always matched our rhetoric. We've learned that we can't solve every conflict or stop every atrocity around the globe, but at our best, the United States has been an undeniable force for good in the world. And what I heard on every continent as president is that when American foreign policy lives up to our highest ideals, when we champion human rights and democracy and the sound stewardship of our planet, when we take the lead in eradicating disease and feeding the hungry and educating children, when we encourage cooperation between nations, instead of trying to dominate and bully and squeeze every advantage just because we can. And most of all, when we show through our example here at home that even a country as big and diverse as ours can make democracy work, it turns out all nations, including ours, become more prosperous and secure. And the world gets a little bit brighter. I recognize it's been almost a decade since I left office. In that time, we have lived through more war and a terrible pandemic, economic disruptions, mass protests, backlash against mass protests, political conflicts that have shaken the very foundation of our democracy. We've witnessed a technological revolution that promises remarkable discoveries, could revolutionize medicine, but is also accelerating inequality, that puts all the world's information in the palm of our hands, but somehow makes it harder for us to tell a truth from a lie, that connects us instantly like never before, even as it makes us more distrustful and more withdrawn and more fearful and more isolated from each other.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and
It's a lot. For millions of people in this country and around the world, the future feels uncertain, the ground unstable beneath our feet. And as algorithms keep feeding us a steady stream of distraction and outrage, as only the loudest, most extreme voices get attention, fanning our prejudices, appealing to our basest, most tribal instincts. It's tempting to give in to cynicism and even despair, to stop trying. We start thinking that appeals to democracy and civic participation are corny and old-fashioned and boring and naive. That the very idea of working on behalf of the common good is a sucker's bet. and that in order for us to win, somebody else has got to lose. I get it. I am not immune to anger or doubt. But I do know this. When we lose faith in each other, when we stop believing that voting matters, that citizenship matters, that our collective voices matter, that how we treat each other no longer matters, then we give away our power to decide our own futures. We open the door to the most ruthless, or the most careless, or the most fearful among us, who see some groups and some people as more equal than others, and see government as nothing more than a way to divvy up the spoils and punish enemies and keep those who are different in their place. I do not believe that is the story of America that prevails in the end. I don't believe it because for us to give up, for us to give in now, after all this country's been through, to cynicism and division would be a betrayal of our founding ideas.
Now, I think this is interesting because Obama himself weaponized the justice system to go after Trump, his political enemy. It is by no surprise to anyone, I think that the facts have been revealed on that when Trump was winning, his race or became a viable candidate, first they were dismissive of him, but when he became a viable candidate, when he was authorizing his DOJ to actually investigate him, they were planting stories. Him and the Democratic Party were planting stories about him, saying there was all sorts of Russian stuff going on with him and a Russian prostitute and all these different things. His party has attempted to prosecute the guy for all sorts of God knows what cases. I mean, he raped some woman supposedly in the middle of Bloomingdale's. It's like crazy, the allegations that came out against this stuff. And none of the American people really believed it, which is why Trump is back in office. So when he says what he's saying right now, it's very ironic that he's saying that, given the fact that his party was instrumental in doing the things that he's saying shouldn't be done, which is wild to me.
A betrayal of our faith. And I remain convinced that the overwhelming majority of Americans feel the same way. That as unsettled as we are, people aren't looking for perpetual anger and division. They are looking for fairness and common sense and mutual respect. That deep in our gut, we want to find a way to turn towards each other again, not further away. I believe this because I've seen all across our country, in cities that have worked together to reclaim their streets from crime, in rural communities that have rebuilt their economy, in businesses that are finding new ways to make housing affordable, in those ordinary people in the Twin Cities who brave frigid temperatures, risk their own safety, standing shoulder to shoulder to look out for their neighbors and sometimes look out for strangers because they knew that was the right thing to do. I've seen it. And I've seen it in a new generation of leaders here and around the world. Like Puniha and Addison. Leaders who are determined to make our governments and our economies and our societies work for everyone. Obama Foundation leaders like Hannah, a Food Corps member from rural Ohio who's helping ensure every child has access to at least one nourishing meal. Or George, an entrepreneur whose nonprofit helps get unused, unexpired medicine, often at no cost, to people who need it. Or Zuzana, a human rights lawyer in Poland, who's won more than 30 landmark cases. There are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these young people out there making a difference right now. And this center is devoted to lifting up their stories, giving them the tools and support they need to expand their impact. For while our work is nonpartisan, we are not values neutral. We have a point of view. The exhibits in the center are not meant to evoke nostalgia for some gauzy bygone era, some unattainable past that we can dream about and say, oh, we miss you, Barack.
So, how's the new gig? Are you selling up a storm?
Oh, yeah. I found it really helpful to focus on finding new prospects.
They're meant to remind us of who we can be, to remind us of what's possible, so we can forge ahead, clear-eyed and confident, and do the work that still needs to be done. We can learn from the past, but America's story isn't frozen in the past. It has chapters yet to be written, not by one person or a few people, not by Barack and Michelle, or anybody with a fancy title or a high office, but by all of us. You know, one of the things a lot of presidential libraries now have in common is a replica of the Oval Office. And if you take a peek at the one inside this building, you will see some objects that carried some special meaning for me during the time that I was in office. There's a program that a friend from the South Side gave me that he had retrieved from the 1963 March on Washington. He was there. There's a Norman Rockwell painting of the Statue of Liberty with workers hanging on ropes, burnishing the torch that she holds aloft. And on the rug, you'll read words from some of America's greatest leaders, including a quote that inspired that arch that you see right there at the south end of the plaza by Martin Puryear. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it's a quote that was often invoked by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but it originally comes from a Boston minister's sermon more than 170 years ago. And at the time, the abolitionist cause seemed lost. The Compromise of 1850 had made harboring fugitive slaves a crime under federal law, even in those states that had abolished slavery. And in a case that garnered national attention, a young fugitive in Boston had been seized and tried and marched to the wharf by hundreds of armed officers, where he was summarily put on a ship bound for the South, where he would remain in shackles and chains. And it was a moment of profound uncertainty and despair. A moment the minister called darker than any New England had witnessed. We do not see, Reverend Theodore Parker observed, that justice is always done on earth. Many a knave is rich, sleek, and honored, while the just man is poor, hated, and in torment. I do not pretend, the preacher said, to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. The good Reverend was under no illusions about the perils and obstacles facing the abolitionist cause. His words offered no easy answers, no comforting assurances that he or his congregation would live to see the progress they so desperately sought. Rather, his was a declaration of faith, a defiant call, not to abandon hope or give way to fear, but to stay true to our better selves and true to one another, and to keep fighting to fulfill the promise of this nation, even in the face of cruelty and bitter disappointment, even in the face of impossible odds. It is that spirit that we open the center today. The same spirit that so many of you showed all those years ago. The same spirit that inspired generations of Americans to meet the challenges of their time. The same spirit that is alive and well here on the south side of Chicago. Same spirit that will see America and the world through its present trials. There is a new generation out there, ready to write the next chapter of our story. We intend to help them do it, and we ask that you join us.
Okay, that was Barack Obama. Very good speaker, I have to say. I mean, I'm not, I voted for Obama, for the record. I did vote for him. Unfortunately, as a person who voted for him, I don't really believe I got much return on investment on my vote. And I voted for him twice. So I gave him the first go. He didn't really do much for me in terms of my vote and where I expected things to go. And the second time, thinking he's going to do better the second time, and he didn't. Actually, I'm a Christian. I have conservative Christian values, and generally speaking, I don't think Obama's policies aligns with those values. And so for that reason, I'm not a big fan of his policy, but as a man, he seems to carry himself very well. He speaks very well. So there's a lot to commend about him. But at the same time, I can't say that I'm in line with how he governs. That being said, the Iran war policy that the Iran peace deal that he did was, I think, probably the most noteworthy accomplishment within his presidency. So I have to give him credit for that, because, Trump is not exactly doing the greatest job on that front. And, Obama was able to strike up a peace deal that he got the whole world to support. And it seems like it was a pretty good deal given the circumstances we find ourselves in now. That being said, there are also a lot of things that, are hypocritical. Now, he took some digs at Obama, but at Trump, but they're kind of indirect. They're not overtly, disrespectful and things of that nature, but he's simply saying that he feels that certain points, voter rights are being attacked, and certain things on that front. I disagree with Obama on some of these points that he made. He was a big proponent of the race in Virginia. Apparently, they didn't follow the state constitution on how to go about conducting those races, and when it got escalated to that state Supreme Court, they shut down the whole election, and it didn't go into effect, and they didn't get to redistrict. And I think that's when he made comments about elections and the judicial branch having to not necessarily be controlled by one party. I think that's what he was referring to. But there was some underhanded things being done there. And then also there's a big controversy about 2020 and whether or not, Joe Biden won that fair and square. And I did stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and watched that election go into effect. And it just seemed to randomly happen at like 3 o'clock where Trump was leading. And then by the time I woke up at 7 in the morning, all the votes went towards Biden, and he seemed to pull this comeback victory and ended up getting more votes than Barack Obama himself, who I don't think there's been a more popular Democratic presidential candidate or president other than Obama. So I don't know how Joe Biden beat Obama. So that raised a lot of questions. And so that's why I think there's a little bit of irony when he's talking about voter integrity and things of that nature. That doesn't mean it's okay for any one particular party to, do underhanded things to get the lead. And I think there's a lot of controversy with that. Trump has been trying to convince the public that, voter integrity matters, and he is taking every measure to ensure that it does, and that states are actually taking measures to put in things like voter IDs and things of that nature. And I think for the Democrats, who tend to import a lot of their voters, that makes them winning elections a little tougher. So I think Obama was taking shots from that standpoint to say that as states are redistricting now due to the Supreme Court, it's going to change the landscape completely, potentially for the Democrats. But we still have a midterms. We got to see how that plays out. So let's see what happens there and, go from there. But that's it for me. What say you? That was Obama's speech. I definitely congratulate him, first black president in the United States, and he just opened up his museum. So for people who are traveling and wants to see that, certainly go do that. And that's it for me. All right, guys. Thank you very much. If you're not already a subscribed member of the show, like and subscribe, stay connected, and also weigh in, leave your comments. Let me know what you think about my commentary on this particular topic and some of the things that Obama was talking about. All right, guys. Talk to you later.